any more points concerning this gun? I'm afraid so. In the interests of slimness, all the woodwork of the hand grip beneath the barrel should be removed. The entire stock must be removed. For firing, it must have a frame stock, like a Sten gun, each of the 3 sections of which, upper and lower members and shoulder rest, must unscrew into 3 separate rods. Lastly, there must be a completely effective silencer and a telescopic sight. Both of these too must be removable for storage and carrying. The Belgian thought for a long time, sipping his beer until it was drained. The Englishman became impatient. Well, can you do it? Monsieur Goussons seemed to emerge from his reverie. He smiled apologetically. Do forgive me. It is a very complex order, but yes, I can do it. I have never failed yet to produce the required article. Really, what you have described is a hunting expedition in which the equipment must be carried past certain checks in a manner as to arouse no suspicion. A hunting expedition supposes a hunting rifle, and that is what you shall have. Not as small as a .22 caliber, for that is for rabbits and hares, nor as big as a Remington .300, which would never conform to the limitations of size you have demanded. I think I have such a gun in mind, and easily available here in Brussels at some sports shops. An expensive gun, a high-precision instrument, very accurate, beautifully tooled and yet light and slim. Used a lot for chamois and other small deer, but with explosive bullets, just the thing for bigger game. Tell me, will the gentleman be moving slowly, fast, or not at all? Stationary. No problems then. The fitting of a frame stock of 3 separate steel rods and the screw-in trigger is mere mechanics. The tapping of the end of the barrel for the silencer and the shortening of the barrel by 8 inches I can do myself. One loses accuracy as one loses 8 inches of barrel. Pity. Pity. Are you a marksman? The Englishman nodded. Then there will be no problem with a stationary human being at 150 meters with a telescopic sight. As for the silencer, I shall make it myself. They are not complex, but difficult to obtain as a manufactured article, particularly long ones for rifles, which are not usual in hunting. Now, Monsieur, you mentioned earlier some tubular compartments for carrying the gun in its broken down form. What had you in mind? The Englishman rose and crossed to the desk, towering over the little Belgian. He slipped his hand inside his jacket, and for a second there was a flicker of fear in the smaller man's eyes. For the first time, he noticed that whatever expression was on the killer's face, it never touched his eyes, which appeared clouded by streaks of grey like wisps of smoke covering all expression that might have touched them. But the Englishman produced only a silver propelling pencil. He spun round Monsieur Goussons' notepad and sketched rapidly for a few seconds. Do you recognize that? He asked, turning the pad back to the gunsmith. Of course, replied the Belgian, after giving the precisely drawn sketch a glance. Right. Well now, the whole thing is composed of a series of hollow aluminium tubes which screw together. This one, tapping the point of the pencil at a place on the diagram, contains one of the struts of the rifle stock. This here contains the other strut. Both are concealed within the tubes that make up this section. The shoulder rest of the rifle is there, here, in its entirety. This is therefore the only part which doubled up with 2 purposes without changing in any way. Here, tapping at another point on the diagram as the Belgian's eyes widened in surprise, At the thickest point is the largest diameter tube, which contains the breech of the rifle with the bolt inside it. This tapers to the barrel without a break. Obviously, with a telescopic sight being used, there need be no foresight, so the whole thing slides out of this compartment when the assemblage is unscrewed. The last two sections, here and here, contain the telescopic sight itself and the silencer. Finally, the bullets. These should be inserted into this little stump at the bottom. When the whole thing is assembled, it must pass for precisely what it looks. When unscrewed into its 7 compartment parts, the bullets, silencer, telescope, rifle, and the 3 struts that make up the triangular frame stock can be extracted for reassembly as a fully operational rifle. Okay? For a few seconds longer, the little Belgian looked at the diagram. Slowly, he rose, then held out his hand. "Monsieur," he said with reverence, "it is a conception of genius, undetectable and yet so simple. It shall be done."